What's up, everybody? It's me, Ronald, and we are taking a break this week. You've probably noticed that the movie selections have been getting a little bit thin recently. Lots of on the couches. But don't worry, we're getting ready to head into our summer movie season, and we have a lot of new movies to come onto the show. We'll be covering Fast X, The Little Mermaid, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, all in the next few weeks, with Barbie, The Flash, Oppenheimer, and the newest installment of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, all coming later in the summer. So stay tuned to the feed for that. But right now, I'm going to bring you a little excerpt from one of the newest ohitsBigRon studio shows. This is a Star Wars novel recap podcast. So for the uninitiated, since the Star Wars universe has been in existence, there have been novels written that kind of build out the universe even further. Well, in 2014, when Disney took over, it took all of the novels dating as far back as the 1980s and removed them from the canon, which basically just meant they're no longer part of the official Star Wars backstory anymore. There are new novels that are being written, but the ones before 2014, those don't count. Well, my friends Kelly Hardcastle-Jones and Emily Gadig decided that just won't do. So they created a podcast called Delusions of Grandeur, where they recap some of their favorites of these novels that have been written over the past 40 years. So if you're a Star Wars fan and you love hearing folks talk about the really deep mysteries of the Star Wars universe, then this is the podcast for you. Today, I'm going to share the first 5 minutes of their episode where they're covering a portion of The Truce at Baccarat, written in 1993. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and this is a bonus episode.
Welcome to the show. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Emily.
And this is Delusions of Grandeur, a Star Wars novels recap podcast.
That's right. Kelly and I are returning to the very first Star Wars novels that we read as kids way back in the 90s. They are formative texts for us, for better or for worse. And they're kind of like the Wild West of Star Wars. It's like before the real Disney money got involved. I mean this as a compliment, but they are essentially professional fan fiction.
Yes. Oh my God, to get paid to write Star Wars fan fiction.
I know, my God, I'm just doing it for free out here. But yeah, they're mostly about the main characters, your Lukes, your Leias. But like all fan fiction, they draw on like the zeitgeist, and they still have a lot to tell us about our own galaxy.
And so each week we're going to bring you 5 chapters from one Star Wars novel at a time. You can feel free to read along with us, but you don't have to. We're going to tell you the plot. Today, on our first episode, the first 5 chapters of The Truce at Baccarat by Kathy Tyers.
You know, I've always wondered this, Kelly.
Yes.
Despite having read this book probably a dozen times, how do you actually say Baccarat?
Okay, so in planning this podcast, this is the first time I had ever said it out loud. What everybody just needs to know, especially for this book, is that on the author's own website, there's an FAQ page where she just tells you to pronounce anything you read in this book any which way you please. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to say Baccarat.
I think that's how I said it in my head too, Baccarat.
After we get through this whole book, we are going to get Kathy Tyers on the line, and we can ask her then.
Love it. Well, let's just dive right in. I think, you know, it's always important to judge a book by its cover, and the cover art for this book is fantastic. I am holding in my hands the paperback that I read as a kid.
Aww.
Yeah, I don't know if I got it exactly in 1994, but sometime in the mid-90s. And I see a New York Times bestseller splashed across the top.
Oh, yeah.
Star Wars in raised, like embossed, gilded type.
Yes.
And then, I mean, we have Luke, Han, and Leia looking very sultry.
Mm-hmm. And they're airbrushed a bit, or maybe they're like painted in watercolor. It is.
Yes.
It's sexy.
It is sexy. And then your favorite part, Kelly.
There's a text that says, "As Return of the Jedi ends, an exciting new saga begins. ... The Truce at Baccarat." So you're already set up to be like, we know these characters from the last film that we watched, because in the 90s, it was the last film that we had watched. And it just makes me ready to dive in.
Yeah.
The other thing that is on my original hardcover of this book are two hands coming across the left and the right of the front cover, and they're clasped in a handshake, and one of them is wearing a very Empire-esque black glove.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one has long nails and is wearing this like hippie bracelet is the best way that I can describe it. It looks like tangled wood or maybe some like found art that they slapped on, but it's a bit fancy. It's a visual representation of the truce. And I don't want to read too far into this, but this book came out the same month that they ratified NAFTA. So I'm pretty sure that's what's happening here. There's some kind of like
space NAFTA
deal between two huge powers.
Yeah, I think that kind of becomes clear that's what we're headed towards in the first 5 chapters of this book. So just to give you a quick recap of what happened, as the cover suggests, this novel does take place mere moments after the conclusion of Return of the Jedi. Luke Skywalker is coming up on a shuttle straight from, a crazy 36 hours where he was repeatedly electrocuted, had to bury his dad in the woods, and then went to a barbecue and had to pretend like everything was fine.
After going AWOL from Army.
Yeah,
by the way.
The 17th time.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting time, right? The Emperor is dead. People don't necessarily know that, though. And so the Alliance intercepts this Imperial droid that's coming in from deep space, like with a desperate message for the Emperor from this planet called Bakura. Basically, they're under attack by this unknown alien force that no one's ever seen before. So the Alliance decides that it would be a real like PR coup if they could go and help out this Imperial planet and maybe like gain a new ally. Maybe they persuade the aliens to join them against the Empire. Maybe they persuade this planet Bakura to join them.
Yeah. So starting in chapter 1, like first page, this is something that I really love about this book. Luke Skywalker, Prince of the Galaxy, man who is in charge of all of the Force right now, apparently, since his dad's dead, the Emperor's dead, and we think there are no more Jedi. His health, his physical, and I'm going to argue mental health, is in shambles. And I love that for me. So
I'm right there with you.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but when he goes to the medical bay to see like just how electrocuted he got, the droid tells him that if he does not take a nap immediately or get into the Bacta tank that's supposed to heal him eventually, the droid might have to.
Once again, the name of the show is Delusions of Grandeur. And if you want to hear more, go subscribe to the show right now. It's available everywhere you listen to podcasts.